When the son becomes an adult, the mother's heart continues to love, care, and worry. This is natural. But sometimes caring becomes control, and love becomes controlling. And then instead of support, there is tension, and instead of intimacy, there is distance. In this video, we'll talk about how maternal care, continued into a son's adulthood, can affect both. You will learn why letting go is important, how it affects the psyche, relationships, and what you can do to keep the love alive without destroying boundaries. Mom, remember the first time you took him in your arms and brought him close to your heart. In that moment, he trusted you without looking back, because you were his world. You soothed his cries when he fell, and rejoiced at his first words like the greatest miracle. Then it was just you and him living. There was no time, no space, no worries but his little needs. But he has grown up, and now in his eyes is the desire for independence. He wants to open the door himself, to take a step on the school threshold, to decide which path to choose. If you continue to embrace him with the same old gestures, when he is already stretching out his arms in independent flight, he will inevitably feel that his soul is constrained. And then the fear of losing his freedom will make him recoil like a bird that has been caged for too long. Imagine a tree growing in a sunny clearing. At first, it was just a tender sprout, protected from wind and rain by your caring hands. You carefully loosened the soil, spilled water, protected it from the scorching sun and frosty nights. The sprout reached for the light, confident in your support, and you were proud of each new leaf. But now it has grown. Branches have grown, roots have deepened into the ground, and now it needs space, not confined to your palms, but open to the wind. If you continue to hold it by its branches, it will not be able to bend its trunk to where the sun grows. It will not develop a single leaf. It will not bloom a flower. So is your son. As a child, your tutelage was a protective shell for him. But in adulthood, your former methods limit his freedom. Your care is like a dense net that holds the tree but prevents it from growing on its own. A mother's love should be a fertile soil, a place where roots take root with confidence, where strength is drawn from, but not shy of sprouts. Imagine a tree letting go of its branches and beginning to reach for the sky, bearing bountiful fruit. Its strength lies in its ability to bend in the wind without breaking, to root itself deeper, to feed on the power of the earth. And then it will become not just a monument to your care, but a living, breathing creature that can survive any storm. In the same measure, your love, when you let go of your son's hand, takes on a new height. It remains a root that gives strength, but does not shackle you. She is like a spring from which he can draw water, but does not depend on her constant presence. Love, from which nothing is held back, becomes the true source of life. The role of status change, from baby to adult. The role of the transition from baby to adult son is much like the changing seasons in nature. As a child, Mom is the warm spring sun from which he grows, drinking her affection and care. But here comes summer, the time of independence, and he is no longer a flower, but a tree, demanding its roots and space. Understanding this transition helps avoid a situation where Mom, by continuing to water and permeate him with her care, inadvertently prevents him from becoming strong and stable. How does an adolescent become a partner rather than an object of care? 1. Dialogue instead of directives. When her son does his schoolwork, Mom knows everything. materials, deadlines, grades. But after university, he makes his own plan, chooses his own path. Here, it's important to move from "do this" to "what do you think?" As Viktor Frankl wrote, taking responsibility for choices is the key to growing up. 2. Respect for his experience. The first job is not just a source of income, it is a school of crises and victories. Mom listening to stories about a difficult boss or a failed project shows that she considers him competent. This trust acts stronger than any advice. Crisis points. Graduation from higher education. Before that, a diploma is the goal of the whole family. After that, the goal becomes his own project. A parent, mindful of his excitement, may choke with advice. How will you get settled? Rather than asking, what options are you considering? First job. This is where the "mom is the expert" logic crosses the line when she starts calling a coworker or trying to solve issues in their shoes. It is more important at this point to be a listener and patiently listen than to give an evaluation. Marriage. The infancy of the relationship requires her involvement, maturity. On the contrary, respect for the choice of the son and his partner. The words, "you're so good, but," may be the "but" that destroys a fragile family. Why is this important? The psychology of adulthood sees autonomy as a key crisis of adolescence. If parents don't let go, the son develops either dependency or protest, distancing instead of dialogue. Tip: in every crisis, look at your son not through the lens of your fears, but through the lens of his experience. Ask, how do you see it? And trust in the power of his judgment. Let mom be a beacon for him, not a flashlight leading the way, but a beacon pointing the shore but not imposing a route. Codependency and emotional responsibility. When a mother's love crosses the boundary of caring and turns into emotional dependency, the family finds itself in an inanimate system where the feelings of one become the duty of the other. Mother, taking responsibility for her adult son's doubts, fears, or failures, is like putting a heavy cloak on herself. Every mistake she perceives as a personal defeat, every anxiety she tries to fix with her words and actions. Two things happen in this dynamic. The son loses a sense of his own autonomy, and the mother loses her mental space. In terms of analytical psychology, this is called codependency. One person lives through the other, trying to control their inner world, and the other person accepts the caring guardianship because it is easier to avoid responsibility for their own decisions. Carl Gustav Jung argued that a healthy relationship is built on recognizing the separateness of the I and the thou, and the merging of egos causes the personality to become lost. In a family where the mother has unconsciously chosen to live her son's life, the lines between the two become blurred. Emotional responsibility is another key aspect. By taking on his worries, mom risks forgetting her own heart. She stops hearing her own desires, to rest, to dream, to make mistakes, to just be herself. There is a constant inner voice in her head. He's worried, isn't he? If I don't help, I must correct his mistakes or he will fail. The same voice, but from the son's mouth. Mom will be upset if I do things my way. Instead of learning to deal with their feelings, both remain prisoners of someone else's concern. The adult son, accustomed to mom taking on any burden, doesn't learn to develop inner resilience. He doesn't experience the natural bitterness of failure because everything has already been sorted out for him. But without this bitter experience, there is no maturity. And so the grown man who was once allowed to blunder is afraid to take a step into the unknown, afraid not so much of his own failure as of his mother's tears. Social science confirms codependency increases anxiety in both partners of a relationship. The mother rescuer, son rescuer scenario can go on for years, until one of them feels the air is too heavy and there's nothing left to breathe. This condition is like a house whose walls are built too close together. It seems warm and protected, but it turns out that there is simply nothing to breathe. An invisible bargain takes place. I live your feelings, you can't manage on your own. But any deal where there is no room for one's own needs and freedom of choice, sooner or later breaks down. And then everyone finds themselves alone with what they were afraid to accept. The son with his fears, the mother with the loss of her own identity. Only by recognizing that love does not equal control, and responsibility does not equal total absorption, can the inner air be restored and everyone be allowed to go their own way. The benefits of healthy distancing. Healthy distancing is not cold alienation, but respect for everyone's boundaries and personal space. For the son, it becomes a natural training ground for growing up. Risk, responsibility, and personal initiative are the elements without which true experience does not emerge. The risk is not a danger, but an opportunity to test his own strength. He learns to make mistakes, get better, and go on without someone else's invisible help. Responsibility is not a heavy cross, but a sign of maturity. When you make your own decisions, you are primarily responsible for yourself, not for other people's expectations. Growth comes from this duo. Risk and responsibility are intertwined, setting the stage for independent achievement and building confidence that you are the author of your own story. A mother, letting her son go into adulthood, gains wings of her own. Ease is not indifference, but a release from constant control. Instead of daily monitoring of other people's steps, she gets the opportunity to hear the call of her own heart. New meanings are born where there is space for personal interests, hobbies, meeting with friends, or doing something that was once postponed. This is not an escape from motherhood, but a profound recognition that a mother's role does not exhaust her entire identity. The mother's own happiness becomes not a byproduct of care, but a process in its own right. She begins not only to give, but also to be filled with communication, creativity, new experiences. And in this fullness, her love for her son sounds in another way, not as a quiet monologue, "I am always there for you," but as a dialogue of mature people, each of whom is free to go their own way, but still able to return to the points of trust and understanding. Thus, healthy distancing creates a win-win situation for both. The son learns to live his life, and the mother learns to enjoy hers. Together, they preserve that thin thread of kinship that does not need bonds of control, but is built on mutual respect and love, in which each has his own territory of growth and flight. Here are some examples from life. Maria has devoted her whole life to taking care of her only son, from his first kicks to his choice of profession. She didn't just buy him clothes, she chose colors, styles, but so that he would look decent. She didn't just ask questions about his friends, checking out each one, but looking for confirmation of his rightness. When her son grew up and moved into a rented apartment for the first time, Maria called him 6 times a day, asking if he had eaten, if he was warm, if the furniture was comfortable. At first, her son laughed and reassured her, "Mom, I'll manage." But gradually, the warm talk turned into reproaches. "Why didn't you ask me before you changed the furniture? How could you choose those friends if I don't know them?" Soon he met a girl, Anna, who equaled her independent parents. Anna tried to include Maria in the joint planning of the wedding, but increasingly felt that the future mother-in-law was trying to rewrite their guest list, the program of the celebration, and even the menu. On the wedding day, Maria, oblivious to her own excitement, voiced a complaint to Anna about her choice of dresses, and then secretly repainted the bouquet in more traditional colors. The daughter-in-law burst into tears in the restroom, and the son, learning of the interference, mentally removed himself from his mother at his own funeral of his childhood addiction. Several months of silence and cold holiday dates passed. It was only then that Maria, tired of being alone, turned to a psychologist. She heard for the first time her love had subtly crossed the line of caring and become controlling. Realizing this, Maria decided to change her behavior. She began to call less frequently, not to give unsolicited advice, but to ask, "Maybe you need my help." Soon her son shared his joy with her, calmly and without fear of judgment. Anna saw her mother as an ally now, not a competitor. Their communication was filled with warmth. They discussed ideas for their grandson, went shopping together at his request, and laughed at funny little things. So Mary went from hyper-parenting to respecting boundaries, no less loving but wiser. Her story is a reminder to every mother. By letting go, you don't weaken the bond, but strengthen it with new maturity. His growth is your creation, but he should feel the freedom to spread his wings. Let him know in moments of uncertainty, you are there for him, but you don't hold his hand as he learns to walk. Let your love be a soft wind, not a firm support that allows him to soar and return to you at will. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means believing in your son, in the fact that you have already put everything into him. What he needs now is not guidance, but space. And if you give that space with love, he will surely come back, not as a boy, but as a man who still needs you, but in a new way. And how did you experience this moment, your child's first step towards independence? Tell us in the comments. Your experience can be a valuable reflection for other parents looking for a balance between care and trust. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, give it a like, subscribe, and share. Your support is inspiring and helps us continue to create the content we need. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.